You wake up in the middle of the night. The floor is cold under your feet. You walk down a quiet hallway to a gleaming white porcelain room. You push a small silver handle. Clean drinking water instantly vanishes your waste into a hidden underground world. For roughly 300,000 years of human history, this level of magic was unimaginable. This effortless disappearance is a profound modern luxury. Today, the average person will spend roughly 3 entire years of their life sitting on a toilet. We consider the bathroom a completely private, highly sanitized sanctuary. We assume our modern obsession with hygiene is the pinnacle of human progress. What if our perfectly sterilized bathrooms are actually blinding us to our own biology? To understand the true story of human hygiene, you have to leave the porcelain sanctuary. You have to look at the messy, terrifying, and deeply communal reality of how your ancestors handled their own waste. The answer is not just a history of plumbing. It is a story of survival, disease, and social engineering. For roughly 300,000 years, the bathroom was simply the world. In the deep past, your hunter-gatherer ancestors were constantly moving. They followed the herds. They followed the seasons. When nature called, they simply walked away from the camp. They relieved themselves in the brush, and then they moved on. Why was this so effective? Because movement is the ultimate defense against parasites. When you constantly walk away from your own waste, you walk away from the microscopic predators that live inside it. There was no plumbing, but there was also no localized buildup of disease. The environment effortlessly absorbed what we left behind. Nature was the ultimate self-cleaning toilet. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, we made a catastrophic mistake. We invented agriculture. We stopped moving. We built permanent villages. And for the first time in human history, we had to sleep right next to our own garbage. Look at the ancient settlement of Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey. Archaeologist Ian Hodder spent decades excavating this incredibly dense early human city. He found a society that was brilliantly complex, but completely unequipped for sanitation. The houses were packed so tightly together that people had to walk across the roofs to get around. Where did the waste go? Hodder discovered that the villagers simply tossed their human waste and garbage into abandoned houses or narrow alleys right next door. The smell must have been staggering. The physical proximity to human feces created an absolute paradise for microscopic killers. By settling down, we accidentally built a permanent breeding ground for cholera, dysentery, and intestinal worms. We traded the vast, self-cleaning wilderness for a stagnant pile of our own making. How did early civilizations try to dig themselves out of this trap? We usually point to the ancient Romans as the ultimate hygiene heroes. We picture them in pristine white togas, bathing in crystal-clear marble pools, and inventing complex aqueducts. The Romans built massive public latrines with flowing water underneath the seats to carry the waste away. It looks like a brilliant, ancient version of our modern flush. But the reality of the Roman bathroom would make your stomach turn. Archaeologist Gemma Jansen specializes in the study of ancient Roman sanitation. She excavated these massive public toilets and revealed a shockingly different world. The Roman latrine was not a private sanctuary. It was a bustling, loud, communal gathering place. Imagine walking into a room with 50 stone benches lined up with keyhole-shaped cutouts. There are no walls. There are no stalls. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, politicians, and soldiers. You have conversations. You conduct business deals. You complain about the weather. Privacy in the bathroom simply did not exist. But it gets worse. How did the Romans clean themselves without modern toilet paper? Jansen documented the widespread use of a tool called the xylospongium. It was a sea sponge attached to a short wooden stick. You would use the sponge to wipe, and then you would rinse it in a shallow channel of flowing water at your feet. Then you did the unthinkable. You left the sponge in a bucket of vinegar for the next person to use. Can you imagine sharing a single, damp sponge with 50 strangers in a public room? The Romans believed the flowing water and the vinegar were enough to keep them clean. They were profoundly wrong. Paleoparasitologist Piers Mitchell studies the ancient diseases left behind in human remains. He decided to test the theory that Roman plumbing improved public health. Mitchell analyzed the soil from Roman latrines, sewers, and fossilized feces across the empire. What he found completely destroyed the myth of Roman hygiene. Despite their aqueducts, their heated baths, and their flowing latrines, the Romans were absolutely riddled with parasites. Mitchell found massive concentrations of whipworm, roundworm, and dysentery-causing pathogens. The communal sponges were literally spreading the exact diseases the latrines were meant to wash away. The warm, unchlorinated water of the famous Roman baths acted as a perfect incubator for bacteria. The Romans did not eliminate disease. They simply built beautiful marble monuments to house it. Does that change your image of the glorious Roman Empire? As the Roman Empire collapsed, the complex plumbing systems crumbled into dust. The medieval world that followed took a very different and much more direct approach to human waste. Without flowing water to carry it away, the waste simply piled up. In crowded medieval cities, houses were built with privies that hung out over the streets or emptied directly into massive, deep cesspits in the backyard. When the cesspit got full, it had to be emptied by hand. This created one of the worst, most dangerous jobs in human history. The Gong Farmer. Gong farmers were men who worked only at night. They had to climb down into the deep, suffocating pits of human excrement with a shovel and a bucket. They hoisted the sludge out by hand and carted it out of the city walls to be used as fertilizer. The fumes in these pits were so toxic that Gong farmers routinely passed out and died of asphyxiation. It was a brutal, disgusting necessity of urban life. Just how bad did the human body suffer during this time? Paleoscatologist Andrew Jones made a startling discovery in York, England. He was studying a massive 9-inch fossilized human feces dating back to the Viking Age. It is officially known as the Lloyd's Bank Coprolite. It is one of the largest and most perfectly preserved specimens of ancient human waste ever found. When Jones analyzed the inside of this Viking coprolite, he did not just find the remnants of a meat-heavy diet. He found tens of thousands of parasite eggs. The person who left this behind was infested with hundreds of adult whipworms living in their intestines. They would have suffered from chronic stomach pain, malnutrition, and absolute exhaustion. Jones remarked that this piece of fossilized waste was as precious as the crown jewels because of what it taught us about human suffering. The ancient world was not a romantic place. It was a biological war zone. So let us reconstruct a typical morning in the ancient world. You wake up in a crowded Roman city. You feel the familiar twisting cramp of a parasite in your gut. You walk down the noisy street to the public latrine. You take a seat on cold stone, pressed tightly between a merchant and a soldier. The smell of sulfur and human waste is overwhelming. You chat about the chariot races. You reach down and grab the damp, communal sponge. You try not to think about who used it last. You rinse it in the murky water at your feet and leave it for the next person. You walk out into the hot sun, entirely unaware of the microscopic killers you just inherited. Do you see how terrifying our past truly was?
It took until the mid-19th century for humanity to finally connect the dots. We realized that invisible bacteria in our water and our waste were killing us. We invented massive sealed sewer systems. We invented the modern flush toilet. We invented toilet paper. We waged an absolute war on germs. We tiled our bathrooms in stark, bright white so we could spot every single speck of dirt. We separated ourselves from our waste completely. But this incredible victory came with a strange, counterintuitive twist. We sterilized our environment so successfully that we created an entirely new problem. Today, immunologists study what is known as the hygiene hypothesis. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human immune system evolved alongside a constant barrage of dirt, bacteria, and harmless parasites. Our bodies expect a certain level of biological noise.
But today, a child raised in a perfectly sanitized, bleach-wiped home with pure drinking water does not face those ancient challenges. Because the immune system has no real enemies to fight, it begins to attack itself. Rates of autoimmune diseases, allergies, and asthma have skyrocketed in the modern world. We are so clean that we are actually making ourselves sick. Some medical researchers are even using controlled doses of microscopic worms to treat severe autoimmune conditions. They are literally reintroducing the parasites of the ancient latrine to calm down the modern immune system. We spent 10,000 years trying to escape our biological reality, only to find out we might actually need it. The bathroom is not just a room with plumbing. It is the front line of a 300,000-year war between the human body and the microbial world.
From the wandering hunter-gatherer to the communal Roman sponge to the terrifying medieval cesspit, your ancestors fought bitterly to survive the consequences of their own biology. Every single time you push that silver handle, you are celebrating the greatest public health victory in the history of our species. You wake up in the middle of the night. The floor is cold under your feet. You walk down a quiet hallway to a gleaming white porcelain room. You push a small silver handle and the water rushes away in the dark. But the next time you sit in that perfectly clean, solitary room, you will know the truth. You are participating in a modern miracle, bought with the suffering of 1,000 generations.